Hi everyone, this is Brian McInerney with the National Weather Service located in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is a water supply briefing and it's February of 2014. Let's take a look at our dominant January weather pattern. So what we're seeing with this, these are the winds at about 11,500 feet, and this high pressure ridge right here has been shunting all of the weather to the north, and it goes all the way up to the top of Alaska, and we see anything down south of Baja still not getting through. So you see the weather pattern has come up over the top of this ridge, and then it drops down to the southeast part of the country and then into the east coast. This is why the east coast has so much snow, so much storminess, and the Midwest, while the west has been shut out of any type of major storm activity. And it's because of this high pressure ridge that extends all the way from the top of Alaska south of Baja. If you look at a storm we had on February 2nd that brought snow to the area, we can see the ridge has moved out farther over the Pacific. It opens the door and allows flow to come down into our area here. This storm did well. It was nothing tremendous, but it did help us out. And if you look at the storm that we're seeing right now, February 6th, February 7th time frame, the ridge is out over the Pacific here, and we see this westerly flow moving in. I'd like to attract your attention to this feature here near the Hawaiian Islands, as this area is picking up lots of moisture with the jet as it comes through. It goes through the ridge and then westerly flow into our area, and this is the storm that we anticipate up to 4 inches of water in the Wasatch right now. Let's take a look at temperature and precipitation for the month. This is the daily mean temperature anomaly for January. Warmer colors indicate above normal temperature. Cooler colors indicate below average temperature, and you can see the country is split in two. Eastern part of the country is cooler, western part is warmer, and these are for the min temperatures. When we look at the max temperature, this is where we see California really starts jumping out as to temperatures that have been on average 10 to 13 degrees above normal, with some areas in the 13 to 16 degree range above normal. Utah, for the most part, has been maybe 1 to 3, 3 to 5 range, but it's been warmer during January. When we look at total precipitation anomaly for January, what we see is the desert southwest extending all the way to Texas and up north into California, somewhere in the range of 0 precipitation during January, or maybe 1 to 10%. Utah, for the most part, has been in the 50 to 90% range. Below average. We don't see anything above normal, but what we do see is Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana has had areas of above normal precipitation, and that's due to that high pressure ridge as it comes down over the top in a northward fashion has graced these areas, and they've done much better than we have. If we look at the total precip anomaly from November through January, what we see is Utah, for the most part, has been below average, 70 to 90% range, with some areas that are near normal, but we also see California with 0 or maybe 1 to 10% during these 3-month period. Let's take a look at snow now. This is the basin averages for each of these areas, and this does not take into account the snow we're going to get this weekend. So we'll start with the Bear, and we see it at 79% of normal. The Weber at 81% of normal, and this is percent median. Six Creeks at 68% of the median. Provo River at 64% of the median. The Duchesne at 74%, and we're in the navy blue color. The Upper Green at 100%, as we saw there. Weather coming out of the north up over the ridge favors the Upper Green and the Colorado. And then we see the Lake Powell group at 96% of normal, doing much better than they did last year. The Sevier at 76% of normal, and then the Virgin at 73% of normal. So now let's take a look at water supply, and we'll look at the Great and Colorado Basin overview, and we'll zoom into these areas, and we can see just where they are. The colorizations indicate cooler colors above normal, warmer colors below normal. And the thing that jumps out us right away is that the upper headwaters of the Colorado River Basin doing quite well in the 110 to 129%, with most of eastern Utah in the upper green somewhere around normal, 100 to 109% of normal. But we also see the Weber, the Six Creeks, Provo, Utah Lake, the Sevier, and down into the Virgin, way below normal. Things not looking good there. So let's look at each area, each basin by points, and we'll start with the Bear. And the Bear is showing up in the green area here, and we'll do this for all the basins just to kind of highlight the area we're talking about. And we'll look at each point with these little blue dots that kind of zoom in there. And we'll start with the Bear River as we get to Woodruff Narrows Reservoir at 72% of average, or 87,000 acre-feet. And then we'll move up to Stewart Dam up near Bear Lake. We see that 77% of average with 140,000 acre-feet. Now we'll move over to the Weber. And the Weber is not doing quite well at all. And we'll start with inflow to Pine View Reservoir in this area here. And that is 41% of average inflow forecasted from the beginning of April through the end of July, and only getting 46,000 acre-feet. We'll move over to a headwater area of Oakley, and we see that 71% of average with 84,000 acre-feet. And then we'll look at East Canyon at 55% of average, or 14.9 thousand acre-feet. So we're looking a little rough in the Weber. We'll move south to Six Creeks, over to this area. This is the area bounding Salt Lake County. And we'll start with Little Cottonwood Canyon over in this area here. And what we see is 66% of average, or 25,000 acre-feet. The forecast pretty much remaining the same from January. And then we'll look at a low elevation watershed in Emigration Creek, and we see that's 40% of average expected from the beginning of April through the end of July at 1.6 thousand acre-feet. Now we'll move to Utah Lake River Basin, and that's just south of here. And what we'll look at is the inflow into Deer Creek to start with, at this point here. And that's 68% of average, or 86,000 acre-feet. And the forecast has declined somewhat, as we see a lot in the range along the Wasatch. And then we'll go to Spanish Fork, and we see that river is at 45% of average, or 31,000 acre-feet. Duchesne River Basin, and that's on the south aspect of the Uintas. And we'll look at 3 points here. And the first one we'll start at is Soldier Summit near Strawberry Reservoir inflow. 37% of average, or 26,000 acre-feet forecasted, and the forecast has declined since January. Then we'll look at Duchesne near Tabiona at 71% of average, or 77,000 acre-feet. And then we'll look at Knight's Diversion at 79% of average, or 154,000 acre-feet. And the forecast declined somewhat since January in this area also. Now we'll move to the upper green. And the upper green is a little bit better. Actually, it's a lot better than what we saw from the Weber, the Six Creeks, and the Provo area. What we'll do is we'll start with Flaming Gorge inflow at 83% of average, or 815,000 acre-feet. Very good compared to what we've seen, and the forecast remaining steady. And then we'll go downstream to the town of Green River on the Green River, and what we see is 94% average forecasted at 2.7 million acre-feet, and the forecast has increased since January. Now what we'll do is we'll move over to Lake Powell River Basin, and we'll look at the Colorado near Cisco, and this is basically everything that's draining out of the Colorado on the southern end of the entire watershed. Excuse me. And this is Colorado at Cisco, and what we're seeing is 4.8 million acre-feet, or 108% of average. These areas did much better as that ridge allowed storms to come dropping down out of the north. Areas farther east did better than areas farther west, and this forecast has increased since January. Now we'll look at Lake Powell inflow itself, and what we're seeing is 101% of average, 7.2 million acre feet. Forecast has increased. Now we'll move over to the Sevier, and again we're sliding west where the ridge inhibited any storm activity in these basins, and we'll look at a headwater near Hatch along the Sevier River. What we see is 52% of average, or 25,000 acre feet. Forecast has declined pretty significant from the January forecast, as we saw an absence of storms. Now we'll look at the Paiute Reservoir inflow near the town of Marysvale. We see 52% of average, or 34,000 acre feet. Again, the forecast has declined. Now let's move to the Virgin River Basin, and we'll look at 2 points there. The first, we'll look at the Virgin near Virgin, and that's the headwater areas. And that is right here. And we're looking at 53% of average, or 31,000 acre feet. And then the outlet of the entire Virgin River system, including the Santa Clara River, and what we see is 37% of average, or 24,000 acre feet. So this is Brian McInerney, the hydrologist with the National Weather Service. I'm located at the Salt Lake City Airport. There's my phone number, there's my email. If I can give you any more weather or hydrologic information, please give me a call or drop me an email, and we'll go from there. I do appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. Thank you.